Papatūānuku, te huri ki te whare, e ta wharau I tātou tēnā koe. Ka apiti hono, tātai hono, rātou ki hutu, hukamati ki a rātou. Ka apiti hono, tātai hono, tātou, te huka ora ki a tātou. Mauri ora ki a tātou. To the powers and voices and people of Waikirikiri Selwyn, greetings. Acknowledge the sky and the land, the building that we're in today, those that have gone before us and those that are gathered in the room, health and vitality to us all. Move into the special extraordinary meeting of Selwyn District Council of Wednesday, the 3rd of July 2024, and welcome all those that are in the room with us and anyone watching this online. This is an extraordinary meeting to adopt Council's long-term plan 2024-2034. The agenda has been circulated. We've got apologies from Megan today, and I'd ask councillors to stand for the council affirmation. Let us affirm today that we as councillors will work together to serve the citizens of Selwyn District, to always use our gifts of understanding, courage, common sense, wisdom and integrity in all our discussions, dealings and decisions, so that we may solve problems effectively. May we always recognise each other's values and opinions, be fair-minded and ready to listen to each other's point of view. In our dealings with each other, let us always be open to the truth of others and ready to seek agreement, slow to take offence and always prepared to forgive. May we always work to enhance the well-being of Selwyn District and its communities. We will. Thank you. Apologies from Megan Mackay today. I'm mover and seconder for that apology. Thank you, Sophie and Phil. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. There's no extraordinary business. Today is just for those matters around the long-term plan. We have the confirmation of minutes from the submission deliberations, and there's one change on there that Nicole would like to highlight. Nicole?
So on page 7, it says almost at the bottom, Councillor Reid arrived late on one of those days. It was on Tuesday, 14th of May, and I was approximately about 10 minutes late getting up. I was online, and that's what's probably not, I don't know whether that's reflected through the minutes anyway, but the whole of the hearings I was online for that.
Thanks, Nicole. Sophie?
Yeah, on page 12, where it mentions Big Decision 3, the text says that 62% suggested at least 2 courts. I believe it was actually 62% suggested at least 1 court. We decided in favour of 2, but
okay, cool. We'll check that and make that correction if that's what the data suggests. Thank you. Thanks. Any other comments on that?
Yep.
Bob?
Yeah, on page 14, it's got that Councillor Reid voted for and against on the Sheffield poll. She had both hands up.
Well, we can go back and have a look at the. Did someone not vote, you say? Lydia?
Yeah, it hasn't got my name in there at all on the Sheffield poll.
So it could be a mix there. We'll look back at the video and correct that. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, with those changes, and our staff will just confirm back through the video what the correct numbers and people are there. Bob, did you have something else?
No, thanks. Sorry.
Nope. Mover and seconder for the minutes. Thanks, Malcolm. Seconder, Bob. All those in favour say aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. We come to the adoption of the long-term plan related policies. Tim, Jen and Alison, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Sam. We've got a bit of a tag team here. So there's a number of papers on the agenda today that will cover off the long-term plan and supporting documents and strategies and the policies. Look, first of all, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank staff for getting us to this point. It's been a tremendous effort for nearly a year right across the organisation. Everyone's lent into this. We've had some challenges, but I'm really pleased to be able to be sit here today and present these papers. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Audit New Zealand. they've been had a lot of patience, and they've worked closely with our teams and helped us to get to this point. So thanks very much, Audit New Zealand. The first paper I want to talk about is the adoption of the long-term related policies. In the recommendation, you'll see the policies listed A through G. I guess the key point I want to make here is that these policies were adopted as drafts at the time of the consultation document. So you've seen these before. So I want to really focus just on any changes made post consultation through the deliberation process. Before I do that, perhaps just a wee bit of background. The policy review process focused on 3 key points, and these are creating easier documents to engage with both for the public and the council. Secondly, the policies, making sure that they were fit for purpose and compliant with the relevant legislation. And secondly, just clarifying any confusion around how the policies will be applied. So they were the drivers for the review. As I say, they were adopted at the time of the consultation document. We received a number of submissions, 36 submissions on the development contributions policy and 201 submissions for the rest of the policies. I'm not going to go through these in any depth. I'll just point out any changes, and indeed there weren't many changes. I guess there were some changes to the development contribution policy in terms of the HUI tables, and there was a couple of minor amendments to other policies in relation to the update financial model. So the policies went through relatively unscathed through the consultation process. You've already adopted them as drafts. So Sam, I think I'll just leave it there and take any questions, or is it the team got anything to say?
Any conversation or comments that people would like to make on the policies? Mover and seconder for the policies.
Also move.
Thanks, Malcolm. Seconder for the policies. Shane. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Tab 5, page 39, is that we adopt the long-term plan, the infrastructure strategy, the finance strategy, the fees and charges schedule. And then we also note the independent auditor's report and the representation letter, which are attached under tab 6 on today's agenda. And there might be some notes that Alison's going to just talk to in there as well. And I'll just note that Julian, as an apology for today, couldn't make our timing, and Annalisa as well, who would have otherwise have been here. Tim, hand over to you.
Thank you, Sam. Again, I'd just like to focus on the key decisions that were made through the consultation process and deliberations. We were still making changes as late as Monday, so there's one change that's not noted here. It's not a substantive change. It was to the big decision 1, public transport, and we just have added a bit more narrative clarifying the risk to levels of service if we don't get funding from Waka Kotahi. So you'll see that is a late change in the finished document. The second big decision 2A, Whātaro, we decided to proceed with building Whātaro, setting aside a budget of $16 million, but with revisiting the design brief to develop the multi-use aspect of the building more and to increase community involvement through a formation of a reference group. In terms of the CapEx deliverability, and this is in the infrastructure strategy, and you remember that Tim led a workshop in early May where there was a proposed rephasing of the work program. Twofold reasons: one, to make sure we kept under our debt ceiling, and secondly, to make it a bit more deliverable in terms of the work program. Sheffield Pool, we agreed to keep the pool open for the 24-25 swim season, but we also agreed that we would have some targeted consultation with the community around the potential divestment of the facility to another entity, looking at different ownership models. And if we couldn't get to an arrangement, then the council would proceed with the closure of the pool. The Mountains to Sea Cycleway, there is a agreement to continue to explore the high country and lake sections, how they would be facilitated and delivered, but we decided not to include these in the long-term plan, the saving of about $7 million. Yes. There's also a decision to complete a rates review process ahead of the next long-term plan. And secondly, there was a decision that we would limit the average rate increase per ratepayer to not exceed 16%.
Yeah, 16%.
Look, I might just hand over to Alison now to talk about the independent auditor's report and the representation letter that we have only just received in the last couple of days.
Thank you, Alison.
I think just on the independent auditor's report and just drawing people's attention to the emphasis of matter that Audit New Zealand have raised. Now that is just around the uncertainty of the capital programme. Our programme is quite large, as Tim has just noted. We have made some amendments to it as we presented early in May. So what Audit New Zealand are saying is just noting that the uncertainty, and it's not just from an SDC standpoint, it's the wider construction market as well, because there's things to note in there as well. So it's not a modification, it is just an emphasis of matter point.
Look, the only other thing I really wanted to point out, and we'll come to the financial strategy in a moment, but in terms of this report here, we did carry out quite a comprehensive series of huis with Te Taumatu prior to the consultation opening, and we looked at some of their aspirations. They included the restoration of Te Waihora, water quality, live and work at home, and economic development and growing the Māori historical connection by telling the story of land and people. And this is really just giving effect to moving towards a treaty-based future. And I think that was a very successful series of huis we had, so thank you for all who was involved with that. Alison, do you want to just mention the financial strategy?
I think I'm just probably going to cover what you've said. I mean, obviously we've got the debt chart in there, and as we noted in the discussion we had back in May, we have moved the programme and taken a few things out, and noting the changes post-deliberations as well. So that has changed our average rates that were sitting at 15.6 down to 14.9. We still have that window, that headroom within our financial strategy in the debt graph as well, which is good to have.
The infrastructure strategy, there were some changes that flowed through from the deliberations, but the main change, as I said, was the rephasing of the CapEx work program. We've also included there the fees and charges for 24-25, and these are all part of the long-term plan. We have listed them individually in case the council wanted to tackle them on an individual basis. Look, I might just leave it there and take questions or comments. I know that Deborah's raised an issue with us we're seeking some clarification on right now, but you may want to raise that, Deborah. But over to you, Sam.
Yeah, next time, Deborah.
Okay, I'll start with the clarification, and it's around the Melbourne Rec and sports facilities. Basically, in our long-term plan, it is proposed to start in 2026-27. If you go to the infrastructure strategy on page 653, its starting date would be 2029-30. Maybe that's a slight typo. Maybe it should read, I don't know. If you go to page 17.
I'll get Sharon to clarify.
Yeah, sorry.
It's the earlier date. I would say it's a typo.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're just seeking Tim's just seeking some clarification, but
Okay. And I have another question.
Yeah, carry on, Deborah.
Okay. We talk about, we went out to consultation for our ratepayers at, I think it was 15, please clarify,
15.6.
6%. We've agreed that we would not charge more than 16%, which leads me to understand how do we credit our ratepayers $7 million from the Selwyn, from the mountains to the sea cycleway on page 40? Because surely by not spend, if we go out at that figure, and then we're looking at no more than 16, is $7 million more or less than the 0.3 that's there? as a saving to our ratepayers?
So I think there's a couple of things in there. So just being mindful of the 15.6 to the 14.9, these are average numbers. The $7 million we will be looking at, and I don't have this in front of me, but I suspect it's loan funded, so it's not going to impact the rates calculation significantly. And also, again, just noting that we have made some changes to the wider capital programme on the back of deliberations, and also the conversation we had early May that has reduced our debt.
Okay, and that, then for clarification, that was on page 40 of the document. So they're my two clarifications.
Thanks, Deborah. Any other questions or comments councillors have around this? Tim, do you want to move on to anything else in there you wanted to address before we move and second it?
No, unless my team members do. I'm good.
And Alison, you noted the comment from the auditor around the note. Okay, Malcolm.
I'd like to move this resolution, and in doing so, thank the staff for their year's hard work. I know that with the magic situation we had at the end of last year, it's been extremely difficult for people to put figures around where we were going and where we've been. I know that staff have put in a huge amount of hours on weekends to get us to where we are today, and I'd just like to thank them very much for their work.
Nice work, guys. Malcolm moves, seconder. Shane, thank you. All those in favour of the long-term plan, infrastructure strategy, finance strategy, fees and charges, and noting the independent auditor's report and representation letters, say aye. Aye. Anyone against? 2. Declare it carried.
Well, I wanted to speak to it before it was carried. We had the light on before you got sort of here to steam up.
Sorry, I'd waited a long time for. Sorry, I didn't look down to see that. Grant. Say it now if you'd like.
Well, in voting against it, I just want to reiterate my concerns about the direction we're taking as a council and the long-term implications of the debt profile that we're building up. It's democracy in action, and I accept that the wider majority of the council believes that the direction we're taking is the correct one. But I want to record in the minutes my objection to that. I certainly believe that we are the change that our ratepayers were seeking, and I think we failed them because as we embark on this path of a long-term increase in our debt profile, we're taking our average debt per rating unit from about $3,000 to nearly $20,000. You know, at least a 400% increase in our debt per rating unit. That's all well and good as long as interest rates stay low and our OPEX is manageable. But my experience of being on council, and that other longer term councils will agree, I think, is that we've never met our debt curve. There are always new councils that arrive with ambitions to do things within the community. And rating affordability is not going to get any easier into the future. And I think it's easier to make course corrections now rather than wait till we're overwhelmed by a level of debt which is unsustainable. And I think that's where we've got to for this LTP process, that we haven't been conservative enough. We haven't taken heed of what our ratepayers have been saying about level of service and pulling back the horses, and particularly some of the decisions that we've made around issues which weren't consulted on adequately. And I'm talking particularly about cycleway from Arthur's Pass to Rollston, which in our LTP document, which we were given, talked about creating a feasibility study, talked about coming back to our ratepayers, talked about seeking alternative funding sources, and lo and behold, basically the council's picking up the tab, unconsulted. It's 15 million. I think there'd be very, very few ratepayers out there who would understand the implications of that. So I'm not going to go on and on because I don't think it's in the best interest of everyone, but I wish to strongly register my vote against this.
Thanks, Grant. Elizabeth?
I second what Grant said, and I just want to add to that. There is already news of ratepayers around the country who are struggling in vast numbers. And we've heard about the 500 and something in Queenstown that haven't been able to pay their rates, and the money is now directly coming out of their bank accounts, and they can't feed their children and pay their other debts and their other costs. Like I'm not against the work that the council's done, but we are in very difficult times for a lot of people, And we are sitting in here with secure, stable jobs. Not everybody is. And I just want to reiterate that the foreseeable future is bleak. Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry, if I didn't allow enough time for people to raise comments earlier, I thought we had plenty of time. But did anyone else miss out on saying the things that they thought they needed to? Shane?
I didn't see any lights on.
I just put my light on. Excuse me. A tēnā rā tātou katoa. Rā mihi ana e kora matua Sam. E whakamihi kai kōrero, kai karakia. Tumu whakahaere e Sharon tēnā koe. E nā kaumahi o Waikirikiri, ngā mihi mana. E nā kai kaunihira. Kia kaha. Kia mana. Have strength and be bold. I guess to the last point around things being bleak, certainly the decisions, I moved 8 of the substantive decisions that now lie with the deliberations that we've had and the long-term plan that we now look to implement. And first of all, I wanted to thank our CEO and our staff for delivering an LTP under very difficult circumstances in the last year. And in saying that, there are difficult circumstances for our district. Information that we received in the past puts Selwyn second at the least deprived district in Aotearoa. And I just wanted to point that out, that things aren't as bleak as what they seem, although for some they are. It is our role as councillors, as we've all agreed, to be an enabling council to deliver that. So on one hand, while we say we're an enabling council, on the other hand, we can't take that away. I understand the pressure that it puts on, especially our rural ratepayers and the large landholders, and for them I sympathise and also support the review of the rates review into the future. I also reiterate Sam's comments at the start of our deliberations that we must put on a district hat. Although, in particular, I thank the people of Ellesmere for turning out and representing their community, and for this council so far in supporting the delivery of equitable enjoyment of assets that we all get to share throughout our district. I'm thankful that the overall CapEx delivery is minimal at 0.3%, that the staff have achieved a $45 million savings through rephasing and delivery of projects. We agreed as a council that we wouldn't exceed 16%, and we've achieved that by 14.9%. Thank you to the 1,500 submissions to the LTP, and that reflects what we are seeing here is the balance of those views. What I've heard from my community is that they want for us to be an enabling council to deliver on infrastructure that supports half of the population, which is 0 to 39 years old. And I certainly see this council in partnership with our mana whenua, in particular, thank you Puamiria, mana whenua Ngai Te Rui Hiki Hiki, Ngai Tua Huriri for your input, and also Megan for her deliberations and support of this council. And I know that I'm very proud to and privileged to be part of a council that continues to invest here locally. So it's my pleasure to support you, Malcolm, in seconding this LTP. Kia ora tātou.
Excuse me. Look, I've just got one clarification around adoption of the infrastructure strategy itself. And the
sorry, Deborah, we're not going to go back on.
No.
You can ask a question about it, but this is really just a chance for some statements you'd like to make, because we missed the opportunity if you didn't put your light on earlier.
No, I did speak to the infrastructure strategy, and I spoke about the mountains to the sea. But with regards to the clarifications in our plans and summary for the 30 years, my question is, if they do not line up with the other strategy in our LTP process, right, are we right in still adopting the infrastructure strategy as
Point
it
of order,
stands?
Mr Mayor, we've moved this.
We already have. That's what's been done. Did anyone else want to make any comments on the long-term plan? Nope. We'll move on to adoption of the statements of intent for Cord and Orion. Alison.
Thanks, Sam. So both of these have been previously socialised. So both for Cord and Orion, setting out the activities and intentions for the coming financial year. So what we're looking for is just confirmation that you receive those statements of intent as presented. We do have a further one to come, which I think is in the July 24th meeting, which is for Central Plains Water.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on these two statements of intent? Thanks, Shane. Seconder? Phil? Anyone want to say anything or comment? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Thank you. And then, because of all of the decisions that we've made in this meeting, we're now able to set rates for the year. And I wonder, Alison, just because we're 2 days into what would normally be a year, if you could just explain how that works and functions.
Yeah, so the final paper in the pack is the setting of the rates for July 24 through to June 2025. So obviously, as part of the wider long-term plan, we are asking Council to adopt this. This sort of outlines our payments and when we will raise our first invoices, when first payments are due. So first invoices will go out in a circa about 6 weeks, with the first quarterly payment being due in September. So this paper just summarises how we go about doing that.
Great.
Also move.
Thanks, Malcolm. As a seconder? Sophie? There's a whole lot of charges here. I'm not going to read through what they all are. So it is as stated in the paper that's in front and circulated through the minutes. Are there any comments or questions that people have on this paper? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Declare it carried. Well, thank you, everyone. And as Shane and Malcolm said earlier, thanks to all the staff, the 12 months plus of work, the weekends that have been spent on this, and to those external auditors who have also been working with us, and Annalisa too. Thank you for all the work, Sharon, that you and your team have put on. Unahia, te po, kia wātia, ai, kua wātia. Declare the meeting closed. Thank you, everyone.